Pharaoh's tomb, the haunting mystery of Tutankhamun. Our next tale of intrigue transports us to Egypt, where a burial site, undisturbed for thousands of years, became the center of chilling events that would establish its legacy as one of archaeology's most renowned and eerie discoveries. This is the saga of the infamous curse tied to the tomb of King Tutankhamun. In November of 1922, British archaeologist Howard Carter and his crew made a monumental find that would grip the imagination of the globe. After extensive exploration, they finally came upon the entrance to the resting place of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, a ruler of relatively minor historical importance in Egypt's vast timeline, yet whose tomb had remained sealed for over 3 millennia. Concealed beneath layers of debris within the Valley of the Kings, the burial site was astoundingly intact. As Carter gazed into its depths by the dim flicker of a candle, he beheld an astonishing array of artifacts: golden effigies, elaborate reliefs, and the now world-famous golden death mask of the young pharaoh. The discovery revolutionized the field of Egyptology, but nearly as soon as the tomb was opened, stories of a deadly curse began to circulate. While the idea that disrupting ancient graves could invite misfortune was not unprecedented, the lore surrounding Tutankhamun's resting place came with an especially ominous note. Some reports claimed a clay tablet discovered near the entrance carried a grave warning: "Death shall arrive on swift wings to those who violate the peace of the king." Whether this inscription ever truly existed is still debated, but the sequence of events that followed only added fuel to the myth. The first alleged victim of what came to be known as the Pharaoh's curse was Lord Carnarvon, the wealthy British noble who financed Carter's expedition. Merely months after the tomb was revealed, Carnarvon was bitten by a mosquito. The bite became infected, he developed a high fever, and his health deteriorated rapidly. He passed away in April of 1923, just half a year after the tomb's unveiling. His abrupt and shocking demise captured media attention and reignited the whispers of a curse. What made his death even more unsettling were the strange occurrences that reportedly surrounded it. As he died in a hotel room in Cairo, the city's lights were said to have mysteriously blacked out at the exact same moment. At that very hour, his dog in England is believed to have let out a haunting wail and collapsed. These eerie coincidences only deepened public belief in the tomb's deadly reputation. In the years that followed, additional fatalities and misfortunes were linked to the so-called curse. Arthur Mace, a prominent figure in the excavation team, fell gravely ill and died in 1928. Richard Bethel, Carter's personal assistant, was found dead under suspicious conditions in his London residence in 1929. Shortly afterward, his grief-stricken father ended his own life. Hugh Evelyn White, an Egyptologist who had entered the tomb, also died by suicide. A note left behind reportedly declared he had succumbed to the curse's power. Even individuals with more peripheral connections were not spared. Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the medical expert who performed an X-ray on Tutankhamun's mummy, died soon afterward. Howard Carter himself, the man behind the discovery, remained unconvinced by the curse claims. He dismissed them as overblown media narratives. He went on to live for 16 more years before succumbing to lymphoma in 1939 at the age of 64. Still, some saw his death as the final chapter in the saga of the curse. But was there truly an unseen force guarding the pharaoh's resting place, or could the explanation lie elsewhere? One scientific theory posits that the tomb may have contained ancient fungi or bacteria dormant for millennia, which became hazardous when disturbed. These microorganisms, once released into the air, might have caused deadly infections, particularly for individuals with weakened immune defenses. The tomb's enclosed, untouched environment would have been ideal for preserving such dangerous agents. Others have suggested that the curse was nothing more than a string of unfortunate coincidences magnified by media frenzy. At the time of the discovery, newspapers were eager to captivate readers with sensationalist tales, and the concept of a mystical pharaoh's curse was the perfect mix of fear and antiquity. In truth, many of those who died were already elderly or in fragile health, making their deaths unsurprising by contemporary standards. Still, not everyone is convinced by natural explanations. The ancient Egyptians took their burial rites seriously, often inscribing their tombs with warnings intended to deter looters. Some believe that if not supernatural, the curse might have had an intentional, physical origin, perhaps poisonous compounds or chemical traps meant to protect the site long after it was sealed. While no mechanical traps were uncovered in Tutankhamun's tomb, the theory of chemical deterrence remains a compelling one. Regardless of whether the curse was real or merely a legend born of fear and coincidence, the mystique of King Tutankhamun's tomb endures. The notion that some ancient secrets are best left untouched continues to echo in our collective imagination, casting an eerie shadow over what remains one of the most iconic archaeological findings in history. And as we delve further into humanity's past, we're reminded that some mysteries may never yield clear answers. The submerged enigma, Cuba's hidden civilization beneath the sea. History is full of civilizations long gone, forgotten metropolises, and ruins that leave more questions than answers. Some have been reclaimed by forests, others entombed under ever-shifting sands. Yet now and then, something emerges from beneath the ocean's surface, something that suggests entire volumes of human heritage may be missing. One such puzzle is Nan Madol, a sprawling aquatic city in the Pacific Ocean that baffles experts with its scale and isolation. But it is not the only location where the ocean conceals secrets. Off the shores of Cuba, deep below the waves, lies a discovery that may be even more remarkable: a potentially ancient metropolis submerged for millennia. Known informally as the Cuban Submerged City, this site is considered one of the most debated archaeological findings in recent history. In 2001, a team collaborating with a Canadian firm, Advanced Digital Communications, was scanning the seafloor near the Guanahatabibs Peninsula in western Cuba. Headed by marine engineer Paulina Zalitsky, the researchers were originally hunting for sunken Spanish vessels when they stumbled upon something entirely unexpected. The sonar equipment detected what appeared to be symmetrical patterns and shapes, arrangements that didn't resemble anything formed by nature. The outlines suggested colossal stone formations, possibly organized in a grid resembling the skeletal remains of a planned urban area. These appeared to include pyramidal shapes, road-like paths, and structures reminiscent of buildings placed with deliberate spacing. Even more astonishingly, these formations were located almost 2,000 feet beneath the ocean's surface. At such a depth, human construction would be impossible within the known timeline of civilization, at least according to current historical frameworks. Zalitsky and her colleagues were astonished. If these forms were the product of intelligent design, they must originate from a time when sea levels were significantly lower, likely before the last glacial period, over 10,000 years ago. Such a date would place the site far older than Egypt's Great Pyramids, older than Stonehenge, and predating Göbekli Tepe, one of the most ancient religious complexes known to science. If verified, this discovery would demand a complete reevaluation of humanity's distant past. How could a settlement of this magnitude end up buried under the ocean? Theories abounded. Some experts proposed the possibility of a pre-Ice Age civilization thriving in the Caribbean before being consumed by rising seas. Others dared to connect the discovery to the legendary Atlantis, although mainstream scholars dismissed such claims as speculative at best. Another idea suggested that this could be remnants of a land bridge that once joined Cuba to the Yucatan Peninsula, possibly reshaping how historians view early migrations in the Americas. With a find of such potential significance, many expected extensive follow-up investigations. Yet strangely, little advancement occurred after the initial press release. Several years later, A remotely operated underwater vehicle, ROV, was dispatched to film the site. The footage revealed large, seemingly carved stone blocks, some stacked as though forming walls, images strongly resembling ancient ruins. Nevertheless, without physical samples or more detailed analysis, no conclusive evidence was obtained. Part of the problem lay in the extreme depth. At nearly 2,000 feet below sea level, traditional diving methods were out of the question. Only specialized submersibles capable of withstanding high pressure could be used, and such missions require substantial funding and sophisticated logistics. Unlike more accessible underwater ruins, this location cannot be physically excavated, making interpretation even more difficult. Doubt also came from the scientific community. Skeptics argued the sonar images might have captured natural geological features, not man-made artifacts. Some geologists proposed the formations could have been created by tectonic shifts, natural rock fractures that coincidentally formed structured-looking patterns. Others suspected misreading of sonar data had led researchers to believe they'd found ruins where none existed. However, the uniformity and precision seen in the formations continued to spark fascination among those who reviewed the original findings. Complicating the situation further was the absence of continued access to research. After the initial announcement, updates became infrequent. This gap in transparency led some to wonder whether geopolitical strains, particularly between Cuba and the United States, had obstructed further investigations. Some theorized that verifying the site as a lost city could upend current historical doctrines and trigger sensitive political ramifications. Despite the uncertainties, the idea of a civilization entombed beneath the Caribbean Sea continues to capture the public's interest. Should exploration resume in earnest, it might finally reveal whether a long-lost society once thrived in the region, its remains hidden for thousands of years beneath the water's surface. The ocean has long acted as a keeper of ancient secrets, preserving remnants of past ages far from human eyes. The Cuban underwater site ignited deep questions about the fate of early cultures, but it is not the only enigma to reshape our view of antiquity. Some secrets lie beneath waves, others beneath deserts, and still more are encoded in the forgotten languages of those who once ruled the earth. Echoes of Silence, the enigmatic script of Easter Island. In the heart of the Pacific lies Easter Island, renowned for its towering stone giants, the Moai. But beyond these monolithic sculptures, this remote island conceals another puzzle, one not carved in stone but inscribed in wood. Scattered across the land are wooden planks engraved with mysterious glyphs known as the Rongo Rongo script, a system of writing that no one alive can understand. For generations, it has remained one of archaeology's most baffling riddles. Locally referred to as Rapa Nui, the island stands as one of the world's most isolated inhabited territories, situated over 2,000 miles from the closest mainland. Once home to a flourishing society that constructed the famed Moai statues, the island also harbors a forgotten linguistic treasure, one that might offer insight into the island's shadowy past. Despite the global fascination with the stone heads, the lesser-known Rongorongo inscriptions could hold even greater significance. The earliest reference to Rongorongo dates back to the 1800s, when Christian missionaries arrived and noticed strange markings carved into wooden tablets. The islanders themselves could no longer interpret the symbols, explaining that the knowledge had vanished with time. According to some elderly Rapa Nui, a privileged class of scholars called the Tangata Rongorongo once memorized and recited these sacred writings. However, warfare, starvation, and European contact had caused the collapse of their culture, taking this ancient wisdom with it. What makes Rongorongo particularly perplexing is its potential to be one of the rare, independently invented writing systems in human history. While most known scripts, such as Mesopotamian cuneiform or Chinese characters, evolved through cultural exchange, Easter Island's isolation, suggests the Rapa Nui people may have developed their writing without external influence. If true, this would place them among the few societies to achieve such a feat. Experts in ancient languages have spent years attempting to decode the tablets, but progress has been minimal. The glyphs are arranged in a distinctive style known as reverse boustrophodon, where each alternate line is written upside down and read in the opposite direction. This peculiar structure adds another layer of difficulty, implying a complex and highly structured writing system. Interpretations of the script differ greatly. Some believe the symbols may represent proto-writing, an early symbolic system conveying ideas rather than full speech. Others think the text may document genealogy, spiritual rituals, or even chronicles of historical events. A few speculate that these writings preserve warnings or lessons tied to the island's decline, messages left behind for future generations. Certain characters resemble birds, aquatic animals, and human-like forms, prompting comparisons to visual storytelling found in Mesoamerican writing. However, no definitive link to any known system has been confirmed, keeping its origins concealed in mystery. The scarcity of surviving pieces only deepens the intrigue. Fewer than 30 authentic Rongorongo tablets are known today, many in poor condition. Some were lost through time. Others were deliberately destroyed when missionaries prohibited native traditions, viewing the texts as heretical. Despite extensive analysis, the glyphs remain indecipherable. Many researchers believe a breakthrough is unlikely without a bilingual reference, similar to the Rosetta Stone, which enabled the decoding of Egyptian hieroglyphs. Still, some hope that remnants of oral tradition or preserved chants could one day provide vital clues. More speculative voices suggest that Rongorongo might be far older than believed, possibly originating from a much earlier, forgotten civilization. Others argue that the Rapa Nui could have interacted with other ancient societies, exchanging stories, customs, or scripts across vast oceanic distances. Though unverified, these ideas highlight how the script challenges long-standing assumptions about prehistoric communication and contact between distant peoples. If Rongorongo is indeed a standalone system of writing, it would mark one of the most groundbreaking linguistic discoveries ever, proof of the intellectual brilliance of the Rapa Nui culture, and a rare window into a civilization whose voice has nearly faded. Today, these wooden messages remain mute. The meanings encoded in their glyphs are locked away, unread and unheard. Yet history abounds with puzzles left unsolved, and perhaps with modern technology or new perspectives, one day this enigmatic code will surrender its truths. Until that day, Rongorongo stands as a ghostly echo from the past, a cryptic message from a world lost to time. While this script remains one of the most persistent linguistic mysteries, it is far from alone. Across the globe, ancient languages and undeciphered codes offer glimpses into pasts stranger and richer than we ever imagined, stories that resist explanation, waiting silently for someone to finally understand. The Castelnau giant, unearthing the mystery of an ancient colossus. In the year 1890, a French anthropologist named Georges Vacher de la Pouge was conducting archaeological digs in the small southern French town of Castelnau. During his excavation, he unearthed a discovery that would ignite one of anthropology's most debated controversies. While sifting through layers of ancient earth, he came across a set of human-like bones. Only these were vastly larger than any human remains he had previously encountered. Among them were a humerus, a femur, and a tibia, each suggesting a staggering stature. Based on the proportions of the bones, the individual would have stood an astonishing 11 feet tall. If accurate, this would make the so-called Giant of Castelnau one of the largest humanoid figures ever documented. Vacher de la Pouge wasted no time in publishing his findings in the French scientific journal, La Nature. identifying the remains as belonging to an extraordinarily large prehistoric human. His calculations hinted at a size so enormous it challenged the boundaries of accepted human biology. Was this astonishing find proof of a forgotten race of giants? Or was it a case of severe gigantism, or perhaps a simple case of mistaken identity? The bones were subsequently sent to the University of Montpellier for more extensive analysis. Experts there confirmed that the bones were indeed human, albeit with unusual characteristics. Some scholars speculated the remains may have belonged to a person suffering from gigantism or acromegaly, conditions that result in abnormal growth due to hormonal imbalances. Others entertained the idea that the bones might have come from an extinct human subspecies with naturally larger builds than modern Homo sapiens. However, a major obstacle stands in the way of confirming any of these theories. The physical remains are now missing. The bones were either destroyed or lost over time, leaving only the written documentation of their discovery. Without the original specimens, contemporary researchers are unable to verify de la Puja's findings. This absence of evidence has led many to view the story with skepticism, labeling it as an exaggerated report, a case of misidentification, or even a fabricated tale. Yet despite the doubts, the legend of the Castelnau giant endures. This is partly because it isn't an isolated case. Throughout history, stories of oversized human skeletons have emerged from all over the world. In Native American oral traditions, red-haired giants are said to have once roamed the North American continent. During the 19th century, newspapers often reported discoveries of massive human-like bones, particularly in the American Midwest. Although many of these accounts lack concrete evidence and are often considered hoaxes, they continue to spark curiosity about the existence of ancient giants. A particularly persistent narrative involves the so-called giants of Sardinia. In this Italian region, local legends speak of enormous human skeletons found in ancient burial sites. Some villagers even claim to have seen these remains before they were allegedly confiscated by authorities. Conspiracy theorists argue that mainstream archaeologists and governments may have suppressed these findings to preserve the established narrative of human history. However, no verifiable physical evidence has emerged to support such claims. Skeptics argue that many of these supposed giant discoveries are misinterpretations. Some large bones may have belonged to extinct megafauna rather than humans. Others may appear larger than they truly are due to environmental factors or long-term distortion. Moreover, medical conditions like acromegaly and gigantism, though rare, have existed throughout history, resulting in individuals who towered above their contemporaries. Yet even among skeptics, the case of the Castelnau giant stands out. Unlike the more sensational tales, this find was documented by a respected anthropologist, published in a scientific journal, and initially studied by credible researchers. If the bones had survived, modern scientific methods like DNA sequencing and radiocarbon dating might have offered conclusive evidence. Perhaps the remains belonged to a prehistoric human lineage that grew significantly larger than modern humans, or perhaps they represented a forgotten community of exceptionally tall individuals. History is full of such anomalies, discoveries that don't conform neatly to existing theories. The Castelnau giant is just one example of how the past often presents us with artifacts and evidence that challenge our assumptions. Did a race of giants once walk the earth? Or were these remains just a rare and extreme example of human growth? Without the original bones, we may never know for sure. But the legend persists, serving as a reminder that ancient civilizations may have possessed knowledge or harbored secrets that modern science has yet to fully comprehend. And not all mysteries are buried beneath the earth. Some still stand untouched by time, in plain sight, defying scientific explanation. One such enigma stands in the heart of Delhi, India, a relic so puzzling it continues to captivate scientists and historians alike. It is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, a 1600-year-old metal column that has remained remarkably free of rust despite centuries of exposure to the elements. Standing over 23 feet tall and weighing more than 6 tons, the pillar is believed to have been constructed during the reign of Chandragupta II in the 4th century AD. Its Sanskrit inscriptions suggest that it was built as a victory monument, likely dedicated to the Hindu deity Vishnu. What makes the Iron Pillar extraordinary is not just its historical significance, but its incredible resistance to corrosion. In an era where modern steel structures succumb to rust within decades, how has this ancient iron monument withstood the test of time? For generations, scientists have debated the answer. Some theorize that the pillar was crafted using a highly pure form of wrought iron, and that Delhi's dry climate helped slow the corrosion process. However, the real breakthrough came in the 20th century, when metallurgists discovered a thin protective coating known as Missa white, a layer composed of iron, oxygen, and phosphorus. This layer formed naturally over time and shielded the pillar from humidity and pollution. This led to another question. How did ancient Indian metalworkers, more than 1,600 years ago, master a technique that modern metallurgy only recently came to understand? The composition of the pillar indicates that the iron was purified using methods involving high phosphorus levels and the absence of elements like sulfur and manganese, an approach that suggests a surprisingly advanced knowledge of metalworking. Some experts believe this was a deliberate feat, not a happy accident, and that ancient Indian metallurgists were far more sophisticated than previously thought. However, not everyone accepts this explanation at face value. Some theorists propose that the pillar is evidence of lost ancient technologies, perhaps even more advanced than those available today. They point to other mysterious metal artifacts, such as the Baghdad battery or the Damascus steel of medieval swordsmiths, as examples of forgotten knowledge that hints at once flourishing technological civilizations. There are even legends surrounding the pillar's supernatural qualities. One myth claims that an ancient king placed the pillar at the center of the earth to stabilize the land. When British archaeologists tried to excavate it in the 19th century, they reportedly found that it wasn't deeply embedded, fueling fears that disturbing it might bring disaster. Some Hindu traditions even believe the pillar is protected by Vishnu himself, shielding it from decay. Skeptics maintain that the pillar, while impressive, is not evidence of divine protection or forgotten science. They argue that similar corrosion-resistant beams in Indian temples suggest that this technique, while rare, wasn't unique. Environmental factors, like limited moisture exposure, likely contributed to the pillar's preservation. Yet despite these explanations, the Iron Pillar of Delhi remains a scientific marvel. Even today, engineers and metallurgists study its composition in hopes of applying its rust-resistant properties to modern materials. It is a reminder that ancient innovation can still inspire modern technology. The pillar is a quiet testament to the brilliance of ancient craftsmanship, a towering question mark over everything we think we know about the past. And it's not alone. Some discoveries seem so advanced, so out of place, that they force us to reconsider what ancient civilizations may have truly known. Among them is an object found in modern-day Iraq that continues to stir debate. Known as the Baghdad Battery, it's an artifact that challenges our understanding of ancient technology. Its story dates back to the 1930s when German archaeologist Wilhelm Koenig examined a group of items stored at the National Museum of Iraq. Among them was a small clay jar about 5 inches tall, containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod at its center. The jar dated back to approximately 250 BCE during the Parthian or Sassanid period. But what drew Koenig's attention wasn't its age. it was its striking similarity to a modern battery. He hypothesized that if the jar were filled with an acidic liquid like lemon juice or vinegar, it could produce an electric current. In a 1940 publication, he proposed that this might be one of the earliest electrical devices known to man. Though controversial, the theory gained traction in the 1970s when researchers like American engineer Willard F. M. Gray built functional replicas. When filled with acidic substances, the recreated Baghdad batteries generated about 1 volt of electricity. The big mystery, however, is not whether the battery worked, but why it was made. Some scholars believe it may have been used for electroplating, a process in which metal is deposited onto a surface using electric current. Others suggest religious or medicinal uses, such as ritualistic ceremonies or primitive electrotherapy. Still, others propose the device was part of a more complex, forgotten technological system, perhaps passed down from an older, advanced civilization. And naturally, some stretch even further, linking the battery to ancient aliens or lost global cultures with hidden knowledge of electricity. Regardless of the theory, the Baghdad battery, like the Iron Pillar and the Castelnau Giant, forces us to ask hard questions. How much do we really know about the past? What knowledge might have been lost? And are there truths still buried in history, waiting for rediscovery? The enigma of the Baghdad battery, tracing the hidden currents of ancient technology. Some believe this ancient artifact is tangible evidence of alien contact, an intriguing theory, though one that lacks credible support. However, not all experts are convinced that the so-called Baghdad battery was ever used as a real electrical device. Skeptical scholars argue that the clay jar might have served a more mundane role, such as a container for storing scrolls or important documents. Others highlight that comparable artifacts have been uncovered throughout the Middle East, none of which bear definitive proof of having functioned as electrical apparatuses. Critics also point out that while the device is capable of generating a small voltage, the output would have been feeble and inconsistent, far too unreliable to power anything effectively. This has led many to believe that the object's function was likely non-electrical in nature. In fact, contemporary analyses suggest the artifact could simply be an ordinary vessel, never intended for energy production at all. No ancient manuscripts or inscriptions describe it being part of any electrical system. There's also a lack of historical documentation to indicate that electroplating or any similar process was practiced in that region during the period the jar is believed to date from. With such limited context, the true purpose of the Baghdad battery continues to elude historians and archaeologists alike. Still, despite the abundance of doubts, the riddle of the Baghdad battery continues to ignite fascination. Whether it represented a primitive experiment in electrical energy, a misidentified ceremonial object, or something entirely unknown, it remains a powerful symbol of our incomplete understanding of ancient cultures. History is replete with unexplained relics, artifacts that challenge our sense of historical accuracy and introduce technologies that seem far ahead of their documented time. Though it may not provide solid proof of early electrical use, the Baghdad battery compels us to confront a much deeper question. How much of ancient knowledge has faded into oblivion? How many brilliant discoveries might have once existed, only to be forgotten across the centuries? If such an artifact could be created regardless of its exact use, it raises the possibility that many more mysterious objects await rediscovery. In this light, the Baghdad battery remains one of antiquity's most captivating enigmas, an artifact that, depending on how it is interpreted, could imply that early civilizations had at least some understanding of electrical phenomena long before the modern era began. While many researchers maintain that its role was likely basic and non-technological, it nonetheless contributes to a broader pattern, one filled with unexplained artifacts and engineering feats that defy easy classification within our historical timelines. The Shugborough cipher, a stone-carved puzzle that resists all answers, whispers of forgotten wisdom, lost inventions, and cryptic communications still beyond our understanding, often surface in history. But not all mysteries come in the form of ancient machines or vanished knowledge. One such enigma lies in a modest set of 10 engraved letters, etched into the stonework of a manor in England. This obscure code has remained undeciphered for close to 3 centuries. Unlike artifacts like the Baghdad Battery, which at least has functional theories, this puzzling series of characters comes with no known purpose. No surviving papers explain its origin, creator, or intent. And yet, some of the sharpest minds in history, including those who cracked Nazi codes during World War II, have failed to solve it. This is the tale of the Shugborough cipher, a mystery hidden in open view. Located in Staffordshire, England, Shugborough Hall is a stately manor built in the 1600s. Once the residence of the Anson family, the estate includes elegant architecture, expansive gardens, and finely crafted sculptures. But among these elements of grandeur, one feature stands apart: the Shepherd's Monument. Constructed sometime between 1748 and 1763, the monument features a stone carving of the famous painting The Shepherds of Arcadia by Nicolas Poussin. The artwork shows a group of shepherds surrounding a tomb and gesturing toward the Latin phrase "Et in Arcadia ego," often taken to mean "even in Arcadia I exist," a poetic acknowledgement of mortality. But beneath this classical relief is something truly mysterious: a strange arrangement of 10 letters, DOUOSVAVVM. For nearly 300 years, no one has been able to conclusively interpret their meaning. There are no surviving documents explaining who placed them there, their purpose, or any event they might commemorate. Despite its relatively modern origin compared to ancient riddles, this cipher has defied all contemporary decoding efforts. Theories span from rational to wildly speculative, each adding to the eerie appeal of the monument. One persistent idea ties the inscription to the Knights Templar, the medieval military group often linked to hidden knowledge and legendary relics. Some believe these letters point to the location of the Holy Grail, the mythical chalice used during the Last Supper. This theory is supported by supposed links to Poussin's artwork, which some researchers argue contains embedded clues relating to the Templars. If accurate, the Shugborough cipher could be a breadcrumb left for those capable of cracking its meaning. Another hypothesis is more personal. Some historians propose the inscription may be a coded tribute from Admiral George Anson, a prominent explorer and a member of the Shugborough household. According to this interpretation, the 10 letters might form a Latin phrase or anagram tied to the Anson family's personal beliefs, accomplishments, or legacy. Still, no single translation has gained widespread acceptance. Linguists have speculated that the letters could stand for a Latin religious phrase, such as "Oro ut omnes serventur," I pray that all may be saved. But this, like other interpretations, remains conjecture. There is no documented connection between the Anson family and such a phrase. What intensifies the mystery is that even some of history's most skilled cryptographers have failed to decode it. Allegedly, during World War II, the code breakers of Bletchley Park, the very team that unraveled the Enigma machine, attempted to solve this riddle. Yet, they too could find no definitive solution. Even with today's advanced tools, professional cryptologists and amateur enthusiasts alike have analyzed the sequence using countless cipher methods. Still, a universally accepted answer has yet to surface. Some skeptics argue that the inscription may be meaningless, merely decorative, crafted to look cryptic, without hiding any real message. But if that's true, why is there no record of its symbolic purpose? Why would someone go to the trouble of carving 10 specific letters into such a carefully designed monument, without offering even the slightest hint of context? It is precisely this absence of explanation that keeps the mystery alive. One of the more curious theories proposes that the inscription represents an early example of steganography, a technique for concealing information within images or text. Some speculate that these 10 letters may serve as a cipher key, one that might unlock a greater code hidden elsewhere on the estate or buried in related historical documents. Yet after centuries of investigation, no single theory has been universally confirmed. The Shugborough cipher remains one of the most stubborn puzzles in historical code breaking. Unlike ancient scripts or undeciphered languages, which may require deep contextual knowledge to interpret, this puzzle seems like it should be solvable, and yet it continues to resist every effort. Its haunting allure lies not only in the letters themselves, but in the unsettling possibility that their meaning may already be lost, perhaps taken to the grave by the person who inscribed them. Unless new records or insights come to light, its true purpose may remain forever hidden. Some still believe the answer exists, waiting for the right person to recognize it. Others fear it is one of those unsolvable puzzles whose truth vanished with time. The Shugborough cipher is a haunting curiosity, 10 characters etched in stone that continue to defy understanding. Unlike many ancient riddles hidden beneath ruins or buried in remote lands, this one stands boldly in the open, silently challenging those who dare to decode it. Theories have spanned everything from sacred relics to wartime secrets, but even history's most brilliant codebreakers have failed to unlock its mystery. Still, the unanswered question lingers, and that's exactly what keeps the intrigue alive. The Ica stones, ancient enigma or elaborate illusion? Some of the world's most baffling historical anomalies don't come from lost manuscripts or cryptic symbols, but from carved images that seem impossible. Deep in Peru's desert terrain, a strange collection of stones has fueled heated debate for decades. These artifacts are known as the Ica stones, thousands of smooth, engraved rocks that appear to depict an inexplicable story. Etched into these stones are images that seem out of place in any known era: extinct animals, advanced surgical procedures, and perhaps most shockingly, humans interacting with dinosaurs. Could these carvings be evidence of a forgotten civilization, a convincing hoax, or something altogether beyond current explanation? The Ica stones first emerged in the public eye in the 1960s, when a Peruvian doctor named Javier Cabrera d'Arquea received one as a birthday gift. The stone, dark and polished, bore a remarkably detailed engraving, what seemed to be a prehistoric fish. This strange image instantly captured Cabrera's imagination. It portrayed a creature that, by all accounts, ancient people should not have recognized. Driven by curiosity, Cabrera began collecting more of these artifacts, and what he discovered astonished him. Thousands of similar stones had been uncovered around the small town of Ica, scattered across the arid plains or hidden in nearby caves. Their carvings ranged from the unusual to the seemingly impossible: humanoid figures riding dinosaurs, illustrations of open heart surgery and cranial operations, and even celestial diagrams resembling star charts. The stones appeared to convey a level of scientific and astronomical understanding far beyond what ancient societies are believed to have known. Estimates suggest tens of thousands of these engraved stones exist today, many housed in private collections or regional museums throughout Peru. But one key question remains unanswered: who made them? When were they crafted? And what do they truly represent? Perhaps the most controversial element of the Ica stones is their depiction of dinosaurs. The engravings show long-necked reptiles, creatures with plated spines and spiked tails, figures that resemble species like the Triceratops and Stegosaurus. According to modern science, dinosaurs became extinct approximately 65 million years before the appearance of humans, and yet the carvings imply direct observation or detailed knowledge of these creatures. Supporters of alternative historical theories believe these stones are proof of an advanced culture lost to time, one that predates all accepted human history. Equally baffling are the carvings that seem to display complex medical techniques. Some stones show surgeries that involve the heart and brain. The tools etched into these scenes resemble surgical instruments, scalpels, clamps, and other precise devices, used in ways suggesting deep anatomical understanding. Cabrera was convinced these artifacts recorded the legacy of a sophisticated prehistoric civilization. In his view, the stones documented a people who possessed advanced knowledge in medicine, astronomy, and even space exploration. According to his theory, this society eventually vanished, leaving behind only these engraved rocks as a final message to future generations. But while the carvings are captivating, the Ica stones are steeped in controversy. Almost from the moment they were introduced to the public, doubts surrounded their authenticity. One of the strongest challenges to their legitimacy came from a local farmer named Basilio Uchuya. In the 1970s, Uchuya admitted to creating many of the carvings himself. He claimed he used simple tools, such as knives, to produce the designs, and even demonstrated his methods for reporters, reproducing similar engravings in a matter of hours. This admission led many to conclude that the stones were part of an elaborate modern hoax. If one man could replicate them so easily, the logic went, then the entire collection might be fraudulent. The Peruvian authorities classified the stones as fakes, and the academic community largely abandoned them as unworthy of serious study. However, the story didn't end there. Although Uchuya confessed to fabricating some of the stones, he later retracted his statement. He claimed his confession was made under pressure in order to avoid legal consequences, since Peruvian law prohibits the sale of genuine archaeological items. Some researchers noted that while many of the stones were clearly modern, others bore signs of significant age, such as natural weathering and patina, suggesting they might predate Uchuya's involvement. This led to further questions. Could a single individual or even a group realistically produce tens of thousands of these stones within just a few decades? And if they were created only for profit, why go to such extreme lengths to manufacture them? The authenticity of the Ica stones continues to divide opinion. Supporters argue that conventional archaeology is too quick to disregard anomalies that don't fit within established frameworks. They emphasize the enormous number of stones, the recurring themes among them, and the possibility that at least a portion of them could be authentic. Critics, on the other hand, insist that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Without verifiable archaeological context, such as an undisturbed site of origin, it's difficult to place the stones within a reliable historical timeline. As such, they argue, the artifacts are most likely a product of modern imagination. There is also a third theory, that the Ica stones are a combination of ancient and recent work. Some scholars speculate that while a few stones might be authentic and display traditional cultural motifs, others, especially those depicting dinosaurs, medical operations, or cosmic maps, may have been added later to attract attention or financial gain. Whether real, fabricated, or a mix of both, the Ica stones remain one of the most provocative and puzzling artifacts of the ancient world. If they are genuine, they challenge the very foundation of what we understand about human history, technological advancement, and the origins of knowledge. If they are fake, they may be among the most intricate and persistent forgeries in modern history. Regardless of their true nature, the Ica stones occupy a unique place in the ongoing exploration of humanity's past. They serve as a stark reminder that history still holds countless riddles, some carved into rock, others hidden beneath the sands of forgotten civilizations. The silent enigma of the screaming mummy, a mystery in the Valley of the Kings. Unlike the carefully chronicled tombs of Egypt's mighty rulers, this particular grave holds no name, no identity, and no clear story. The man buried within has no known origin, no confirmed crime, and no explanation for the disturbing manner in which he was laid to rest. Historians refer to him only as Unknown Man E, and for over 100 years, his remains have mystified Egyptologists. His discovery was unlike any other. Instead of the usual linen wrappings reserved for the elite, this mummy was covered in sheepskin, a material deemed ritually unclean by the standards of ancient Egyptian burial customs. Most unsettling of all, his facial expression is frozen in what appears to be a scream, mouth agape and head thrown back. Was he a disgraced royal, a political traitor, or someone intentionally erased from the records of history? The puzzling mummy was unearthed in 1886 during excavations led by Egyptologist Gaston Maspero at Deir el-Bahari. The team had been working through a hidden cache of reburied royal mummies, a secret chamber where remains had been hastily moved long after death to protect them from grave robbers. Many of the bodies belonged to pharaohs, high-ranking priests, and elite officials, relocated to escape desecration. Among these, one figure stood apart, while others had been embalmed with care and wrapped in fine textiles. Unknown Man E had clearly not received the same respect. His body was crudely swaddled in animal hide, a gesture that ancient Egyptians would have considered deeply insulting. He had not undergone the traditional mummification process. His organs had not been removed. His corpse had been left to rot naturally before being rushed into burial and sealed inside a coffin. And then there was the face, his mouth open in what appeared to be a scream, his neck arched backward. Unlike the peaceful, composed expressions of typical mummies, this one looked as if he had died in terror or agony. For decades, scholars have argued over his identity and the reason for his unusual burial. One theory suggests he was a royal conspirator, a man punished not only in life, but denied dignity in death. Others believe he may have been executed or poisoned, and the denial of mummification was an additional layer of disgrace. Among the more prominent theories is the idea that Unknown Man E may have been Prince Pentauer, the son of Pharaoh Ramesses III. Ancient documents detail a conspiracy known as the Harem Plot, an attempted coup orchestrated by one of the pharaoh's wives who hoped to place her son, Pentauer, on the throne. The plan was discovered and many of the conspirators were sentenced to death. However, Pentauer's fate was different. Some historical accounts imply he was forced to take his own life, rather than face formal execution. This interpretation fits with the condition of Unknown Man E's corpse, unembalmed, hastily buried, dishonored. His contorted face, some argue, could be the result of strangulation or poison. In 2012, genetic testing gave this theory additional weight. Researchers compared DNA from Unknown Man E to that of Ramesses III and found that they shared a close blood relationship, possibly that of father and son. This supports the idea that this screaming mummy may indeed be the cursed prince, condemned for treachery and denied the sacred journey to the afterlife. But not all experts agree. Some argue that the use of sheepskin and the absence of embalming might not signify disgrace at all. These elements could indicate that the man was not Egyptian. Foreigners in ancient Egypt were often interred using different methods, their burials lacking the ceremonial traditions observed for natives. Perhaps Unknown Man E was a foreign prince, a captured noble, or a political prisoner. His strange burial could reflect cultural differences rather than dishonor. There is also the possibility that his haunting expression was not due to pain or fear at death. When a body is left untreated, natural decomposition can cause the jaw to slacken and fall open, creating the illusion of a scream. Without proper embalming, facial features can become distorted post-mortem. Another theory suggests he may have died suddenly, perhaps from an unexpected illness or accident, which left no time for mummification. In ancient Egyptian belief, an improper burial meant a soul was at risk, destined to wander eternally, unable to reach the afterlife. If he died in a way that prevented traditional rites, his soul may have been thought doomed from the beginning. Despite decades of scientific testing and technological advancements, the riddle of unknown man E persists. His remains represent an anomaly, neither fully royal nor fully rejected. His burial was neither ceremonial nor entirely punitive. If he truly was Prince Pentaur, his fate is a chilling reminder of how brutal political power struggles could be, with betrayal punished even beyond death. If instead he was a foreign captive, his presence among Egyptian royalty speaks to deeper, untold stories of war, diplomacy, and hidden figures who once walked the halls of power. Whoever he was, his body has endured as a haunting mystery, his name lost to time. Over a century after his remains were discovered, unknown man E is still nameless, his identity concealed beneath centuries of dust and legend. Interred among the pharaohs but stripped of their honor, his contorted expression remains, a silent scream that echoes through history, demanding answers we may never find. And yet, this chilling story is not unique. Another great leader, one who built an empire from Asia to Europe, a figure who reshaped the world, also vanished from history without a trace. His legacy was carved into nations, but his final resting place remains hidden. This is the mystery of the enigmatic burial site of Genghis Khan, history's greatest lost secret. The lost burial place of Genghis Khan, born as Ujin around the year 1162, was the founder of the Mongol Empire, the largest continuous empire ever known to mankind. Through ruthless strategy, overwhelming power, and masterful military genius, he united the scattered Mongol clans and forged an empire stretching from China all the way to Persia, crushing every obstacle in his path. He revolutionized warfare, established an extensive trade network along the Silk Road, and left a profound legacy on civilization itself. Yet, despite his vast conquests and immense influence, nobody knows where he was finally laid to rest. His burial site remains undiscovered, standing as one of history's most compelling unsolved mysteries. Legend states that Genghis Khan passed away in 1227 during a military campaign against the Western Xia dynasty in China. Some accounts say he died in battle, others claim he was wounded falling from his horse, or that illness claimed his life. His death was kept a closely guarded secret for as long as possible to avoid turmoil within his empire. But what happened to his corpse remains shrouded in mystery. Mongol tradition demanded that their leader's burial place remain secret, hidden, and untouched. Historical reports suggest that those tasked with transporting his body were ordered to kill anyone they encountered along the route to ensure the tomb's location stayed confidential. Some versions of the tale add that once the grave was completed, the soldiers who performed the burial were themselves executed, guaranteeing no one could ever reveal the site. To further protect the resting place, it is said that a river was diverted to flood the burial area, erasing all signs of the grave. Another legend tells of 1,000 horses trampling the ground repeatedly to flatten any traces of digging. Some even believe trees were planted to conceal the site entirely, so no friend or foe would ever disturb Genghis Khan's eternal rest. For centuries, historians and treasure hunters have scoured the lands, hoping to find his tomb, believing it might contain unimaginable wealth, artifacts from his military campaigns, and secrets about one of history's most mysterious rulers. However, despite extensive searches, no confirmed trace of his burial has ever surfaced. Many theories exist regarding the tomb's possible whereabouts. The most widely accepted view places the burial somewhere in the Khangai Mountains of modern-day Mongolia, a region regarded as sacred by the Mongols. This area, known as Ichkorig, or the Great Taboo, was closed off to outsiders for centuries, guarded by elite Mongol warriors known as the Dark Had. Anyone attempting to enter faced death. Some believe the tomb lies beneath Burkhan Khaldun, the mountain where Genghis Khan reportedly took refuge during his youth. The Mongols revered this mountain, and Khan himself declared it a place to be forever protected. Yet to this day, no definitive evidence of a tomb has been found there. Another possibility is that his remains were moved to a remote location far from Mongolia, perhaps somewhere in China. Some theories propose that his followers transported him to the Ordos region, where a later shrine was built to honor him. However, most experts believe this site served as a memorial rather than an actual burial place. Additional ideas suggest that the tomb could be hidden underwater, buried beneath shifting sand dunes, or concealed in an underground chamber yet to be discovered. The scarcity of concrete historical documentation has only fueled speculation, making the search increasingly difficult as centuries pass. In recent decades, several archaeological missions have sought the tomb using modern technology such as satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, and analysis of historical texts. The most ambitious expedition occurred in the early 2000s, when teams of researchers and Mongolian scholars joined forces to scan the Khangai Mountains for ancient burial signs. Despite these advances, no definitive proof of the tomb has been found. One major challenge in the hunt is Mongolia's deep cultural respect for the Khan's wishes. Many Mongolians firmly believe Genghis Khan's tomb should remain undisturbed as he commanded. Excavating the site, if it exists, would violate sacred tradition and offend national pride. This reverence has caused reluctance to pursue large-scale digs, even with interest from international archaeologists. Adding to the mystery, some stories claim the tomb was looted or destroyed long ago. If true, it might mean that even if the burial site is eventually located, its treasures and historical relics could have already been lost. Conversely, others hold that the tomb remains untouched, hidden beneath layers of time, awaiting discovery. The lost tomb of Genghis Khan remains one of archaeology's greatest enigmas. Unlike other rulers whose graves are marked by monumental tombs and lavish inscriptions, Genghis Khan's final resting place was intentionally erased, concealed by both natural elements and human actions. For historians, finding his tomb would be a groundbreaking revelation, potentially unveiling new insights into his life, death, and the vast empire he built. But for many Mongolians, the secrecy itself is part of his enduring legacy, proof that even in death, the great Khan remains beyond reach. Whether the tomb lies beneath a mountain, hidden in an unexplored valley, or buried somewhere entirely unknown, Genghis Khan's final resting place remains one of history's most elusive secrets, and perhaps, as some believe, it is meant to remain that way. History is full of mysteries, some buried deep in the earth, others lost beneath oceans, and still others hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered. Today's story is only a glimpse into the strange, unexplained, and forgotten chapters of the past that continue to baffle scholars and ignite debate. If you enjoyed this exploration into the unknown, be sure to subscribe and watch our other videos for more fascinating mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for joining us, and as always, until next time, stay curious and stay safe.